Do you ever feel like God has left you hanging? Let's get into that. Hi, and welcome to Faith in Front. So sometimes, yes, you can feel like God has left you hanging. I know, if I'm going to be honest, sometimes I've had that feeling like, what are you doing? Where are you? Things are happening and I'm praying, and nothing's happening. And we know that God doesn't leave us hanging because he says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. We know the truth, but sometimes our feelings can get the best of us, and if we're honest with ourselves, we can genuinely feel like God has left us hanging. And there's a story in John chapter 11 that really exemplifies this. And I'm just going to read parts of it because it's kind of a long story. So I'll break it up just to get to the point. Okay, and this is when Lazarus dies. So it starts off, now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. Now, Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they were cool with Jesus. They were good friends. Okay, and it says that this Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sister sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. So Jesus gets word that Lazarus is sick. Okay. And it says, now Jesus loved Mary. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. So Jesus gets word that Lazarus is sick, but he stays 2 more days. So now I'm going to jump ahead in the story. Okay, because what ends up happening is that Lazarus, he ends up dying. And so now Mary and Martha, they're like, Lord, it says even in verse 21, Lord, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And when Mary saw Jesus, because Jesus sent for Mary, who was still in the house, that's the first thing she says to Jesus. If you just had been here, our brother wouldn't have died, because they knew that Jesus could heal people. So later on in the story, we learn, and you can read this for yourself, and Jesus says down in chapter 34, where have you laid him? He asked. Come and see, Lord, they replied. And then Jesus wept because he was emotional because of how emotional they were. Okay. And then, but some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man have kept this man from dying? Okay. And then it basically says in verse 39, take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Then Jesus says, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he said this, Jesus called out loud, Lazarus, come out. And the dead man came out, his hands and his feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to him, take off the grave clothes and let him go. So Jesus ends up raising Lazarus from the dead. But as we're talking about feeling like God has left you hanging, Mary and Martha felt like Jesus left them hanging. I mean, they were good friends, because he said one of the first things Martha said was, "Is the one you love is sick." It's like he was like, in everyday terms, your boy is sick. I mean, come help him out. And Jesus stayed back for 2 days. So Mary and Martha's like, what's going on? You ever feel like that with God? Like, what just happened here? So the word of encouragement is this. Sometimes it's going to feel like in your emotions that God has left you hanging. But what was the truth? They knew that Jesus could heal people. They saw him heal the blind man. They saw him tell a man to take up your mat. Sorry, I'm getting over something. They saw him tell a man, take up your mat and walk, because he couldn't walk. They saw him feed the multitude. So they knew Jesus could heal sick people. That's what they wanted him to do with Lazarus. But what they didn't know is that Jesus could do something greater than that. He could raise someone from the dead. They hadn't seen that. So my encouragement, your encouragement is that when it feels like God has left you hanging, like how Mary and Martha felt, just know he's doing something greater. He wants to show you something greater about himself. And that's the reason for what you may feel is the delay. Because you know the song says he's an on-time God. He may not come when you want him, but he'll be there right on time, right? And he was right on time, because Lazarus came out of the grave. They didn't know Jesus was going to do that. It also makes me think of Ephesians 3:20, where it talks about God is able to do exceedingly above all we can ask or think. God did something greater than what Mary and Martha thought. They only knew he could heal. So God is always showing us greater things about himself. Sometimes the greater thing he wants to do is give you a greater faith, do something in your life to increase you to be more conformed to his image. So I pray that this story gives you encouragement like it did me, because I've been in some situations where I've been like, what are you doing? Feeling like God has left me hanging, just like Mary and Martha felt like that. But I find encouragement knowing that God is trying to do something greater in my life. And I pray that you find encouragement that God is trying to do something greater in your life. If you have not put your trust in Jesus Christ, I pray that this will be the day that you do. For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believes should not perish but have everlasting life. God just wants you to believe in the free gift of salvation. It's nothing you can do to earn your way to heaven. A lot of people think, well, if I just do enough good things, God will let me in. No, heaven is not for good people. Heaven is for people who have been redeemed, who have put their trust in Jesus Christ. It's not for good people. Okay? So don't be fooled by that trick of, well, if my good just outweighs my bad, I'm okay. That's not the way it works. It is for people who are redeemed, who have embraced, who have put their trust and their faith in the finished work of what Jesus did on the cross to pay the sin debt, because we're all born sinners. So I pray that if you have not become a follower of Jesus Christ, that this would be the day that you do. As usual, keep your faith in front.